I'm Rick Lewis with Phenom Hoop Report. On today's Coach's Corner, I have Coach Josh Thompson from Bishop McGuinness. Welcome, Coach.
Thanks for having me, Rick. Good to be here.
Well, Coach, you started at Bishop McGuinness in 2004. You have 275 career wins. You won a state championship in 2009 and also 2019. And also in 2019, you won the Winston-Salem Journal All-Northwest Coach of the Year Award. You've had 16 players since you've been at Bishop McGuinness to go on and play at the collegiate level. You now have 2 players that played for you who is coaching at the collegiate level. And you're also the founder and program director for NC Spartans. Now, you started for Bartlett Yancey High School under Lindsey Page, who made the North Carolina Hall of Fame. What lessons did you learn from him when you played for him?
Well, it was neat because Coach Page was the coach at BY for 35 years, and his 35th season was my senior year. So he was kind of a legend in our county and in the area, and I watched him win a state championship in '88 when my sister was a cheerleader. So it was always my goal to play there. But some of the lessons that I learned from him, number one was practice planning. I remember every day he would have a little note card that he had our practice plan written out on every day in his 35th year. So just to notice him doing that after having done it for 35 years, it showed me the importance of practice planning. And another kind of tough lesson I learned from playing under him was how hard it is to win in the state playoffs. We were ranked number 1 or 2 all year in the state my junior year, and we lost in the 3rd round of the playoffs on a half-court heave buzzer beater in overtime. And I caught the ball out of the net after that. And I'll never forget that feeling, like just knowing that we were a state championship level team that year, but there's such a fine line between winning and losing. And then I'd say the last thing that I learned from him in high school is just the impact of a coach, because as we may talk about later, he is kind of one of the reasons that I got into coaching in the first place.
Well, you've been coaching at Bishop McGuinness since 2004. And 5 years later, you won a state championship in 2009. How did you get involved in coaching at such an early age?
Well, going back to my high school coach, when I was in the 8th grade, he came and talked to our 8th grade team. We had a really good team that year, as the team that I just spoke about. When in high school, we had a chance to win a state championship. We were 16-0 in the 8th grade, and he came and talked to our team about what he was looking for in players and what he valued. And like I said, he was a legend around where I grew up, and kind of that's when I knew I wanted to be a coach in the 8th grade. And going through high school, my youth pastors, they did a lot for me and were instrumental in my life. So there was a time that I struggled with, okay, I want to be a coach, but I also think I might want to be a youth pastor because of the impact these guys have had on me. And then when I was in college, I read a book from John Wooden called They Call Me Coach. And there were some excerpts in that book where some of the people kind of had the same feelings that I did. And kind of came out that they were going to make the young men in coaching their mission field or their ministry. So I think that God just kind of showed me that I could do both, have an impact on young people through coaching and through basketball, a sport that I was passionate about.
Coach, recently we've been at Phenom been doing a segment called Books in Basketball. And we've been doing this segment, and it's been very popular. And you sent me basically a listing a year by year of the GPA at Bishop McGuinness. And when you first got there in 2004, the GPA was like 2.85. But ever since that first year, starting in 2005, Bishop McGuinness has maintained a 3.1 GPA or higher in every single year you've been at Bishop McGuinness. Talk about that.
Yeah, that's a stat that we're really proud of. And the first thing there I'd like to say is it's a caring faculty and administration. When I was hired in 2002 to do the JVs and then 2004 for the varsity, I was 22, 24 years old. Our athletic director, Jeff Stoller, and our principal at the time, George Repass, kind of really took a chance because I was just getting into it. I didn't know what I was doing, but they took a chance on me. And I think that one of the big things that allows us to have that that GPA is our caring faculty and staff at Bishop. We're a small school, and the teachers really want to see students succeed. But even still, probably more important than that would be the kids' drive to be good academically. That stuff doesn't just happen. The kids have to put in the work, and there's many nights before the game the kids will be studying or doing homework, and then after the games, road trips, they can get home at 11 and be up till 1, 2 o'clock in the morning doing their homework. So Bishop is very academic intensive, and without a drive from the young man or the young man's family supporting that, that doesn't happen. So I give all the credit to our guys that have maintained that and lived up to it throughout the years. It's not really anything that we've done as a staff. We try to do some things to support them, sometimes study halls and things like that, but credit goes to them, and just being able to maintain that over the years is something that I've been really proud of our team for being able to do.
Well, you guys have maintained a tremendous academic culture at Bishop McGuinness. The one stat that really stuck out to me was in 2009 and 2019, when you won the state championship, the cumulative GPA of the team was 3.7.
Yeah, it's funny how that works, because I think I tweeted this the other day that when guys take their job seriously in the classroom, that carries over onto the court. And it's funny how that happens in 09 and 19. That's some of our highest GPAs that we've had. And again, it's just a testament to our guys, but it's also a testament to the principles of hard work, taking your job seriously in everything that you do. That stuff does not separate. You can't be a slacker in the classroom and then expect to achieve great things on the court. It's kind of like the little picture you see sometimes on the internet of guys stopping just short of a line. And that's kind of the difference between having great success and falling short of success to some degree.
I agree with you. I've always had the mindset that if you're successful in the classroom, that success will carry over onto the basketball court. And I'm looking at the number of players that you've had at a small school like Bishop McGuinness, which is a 1A. You've had 16 players to play at the collegiate level. The other thing, too, is for college coaches, when they're looking at young players, the higher your GPA is, if you're a talented player, you increase your ability to be recruited at the next level.
Yeah, 100%. I can't stress that enough. And I know when I was in high school that I heard the same thing, or when I first started my coaching career, I heard the same thing, but I didn't know that I necessarily believed it. Now, here 20 years in, it's so true. The first question that college coaches ask me is, how are his grades and what kind of kid is he? And I've just seen that so many times. Guys have either opened doors for themselves. They could be a little bit of a marginal player, but have great grades, and that opens a huge door for them to go to a great academic school. And I've just seen that time and time again. And if guys could believe that early on in their career and take their academics seriously, I can't say enough how many doors I've seen open for guys just because they have good grades.
And also in 2018, you did something that was just unheard of. The cumulative GPA for the team was 4.2.
Yep. And going back to what we said earlier, I was so proud of that team because not only did they, let's call it overachieve in the classroom with a 4.2, that team overachieved on the court. That team set the tone for the team that won the state championship next year. And we had Ryan Moon, who's now playing basketball at Williams College, a high academic school. CJ Capuccio, who's going to be playing at Milwaukee School of Engineering next year. And then Mark Palmisano, who's a manager at Michigan State now. So, and those guys were a huge part of that 4.2 GPA, but they were great on the court too, and they were great leaders. And that team's really special to me.
Well, 2019 was a very special year. You won the state championship. You went 24-8. Now, in the sectionals, the regionals, even the state, you really weren't favored in many of the games. And you went up against your rival, which was Winston-Salem Prep. You beat them 56-53. Then you played North Stanley. You beat them 66-63. And then you played North Rowan for the Western Regional Championship, and you won 43-40. And then in the state championship game, you went up against Henderson Collegiate, and you won 55-54. Talk about each one of those games and how you got there.
Oh, well, kind of being labeled the underdog, we love that because most of the time we're labeled the underdog because we don't necessarily look the part for whatever reason that may be. But we love it, and I think that team played with a chip on their shoulder because of that nobody expected or nobody talked about us that we were going to win. But going back to those games, playing Winston-Salem Prep, it was the 4th time we had played them that season. Most of our games have been close, with the exception of the conference tournament championship with those guys. But going back over there, we felt like we had a chance because we felt that we were right there in 2 of those 3 games. Our guys were hungry to beat them, but to win against them and to win at their place, that's a tall task. But fortunately, we were able to keep the game close throughout. We had a 1 or 2 possession cushion there at the end, and it got shaky, but we were able to finish it off. Free throw line, we got some easy baskets, broke their pressure, and got that win. And then North Stanley upset Lincoln Charter, who was a favorite in the 1A that year as well. So ended up we got to host North Stanley at Bishop, and it was a packed house there. They had a really nice player in Bryson Childress, really good big man, and a nice supporting cast also. And that game was back and forth, and they shut down one of our top scorers, Jake Ledbetter. Played great defense on him, but to Jake's credit, Jake did not make the game about himself. He took that defender away, got out of the way, and other guys made shots. Cameron Caraway had a great night. Andrew Budzinski had a big night, hit some perimeter shots. And Mac McElhaney, our point guard, had a career night scoring for us that night. And we were able to beat North Stanley by 3 at home. And then going to North Rowan. We played North Rowan at Catawba Valley Community College. And when we saw them warming up, we were wow, they're grown men out here playing. Fortunately, our game plan really worked in the first half. We built a lead. In the second half, they cranked the pressure up some, and we wavered a little, but we were able to finish that game off too behind some key buckets from really all our guys. And then Henderson Collegiate in the state championship game. At the time, no one really knew who Henderson Collegiate was too much, and we didn't either. It was hard to get a lot of information on them, but that game was a nightmare for about the first 3.5 quarters for us. We got down 14 points. We just couldn't get our momentum going, but luckily Andrew Budzinski had a huge game for us. Cameron Caraway got going in the second half, and Budzinski got fouled with 0.7 seconds left to go. And the score was tied. He made a free throw under a second remaining in the state championship game to finish that off, and it was a great feeling.
Well, Coach, you mentioned earlier, when you played for Lindsey Page, how difficult it is to win in state championship games, and you said you always remember, losing that game as a player when they hit that half-court shot and you were underneath the basket and you caught the ball coming through the net. There's been a lot of good coaches that's come through that's lost very close games. As a coach, you've had the ability to win a lot of close games. What do you contribute to the success of that?
Well, number one, I don't think that we got lucky. A lot of it is luck in the playoffs, but I don't think there's any secrets to it. But I think number one, we've had players that are talented, and I think sometimes coaching's overrated because your players have got to be good players. We've had really talented players that have bought into us and what we've tried to coach them to do, and they bought into the team concepts, the teams that not even the ones that have necessarily won the state championships exclusively, just the teams that have been really good have bought into the team concept and not been about themselves. And number two, to win those close games in the playoffs, I'd like to think that we've worked hard and we've prepared for that moment all year long. We try to begin with the end in mind. From day one, we try to get ready for the playoffs. So, and things just fell into place for us. And we've been on the other end of those games as well in the playoffs. We've lost by 1 point, 2 points. But I go back to luck is a part of it. And I think that's true at any level. The collegiate level, you go back and look at Virginia last year when they won. They got lucky at the end of a couple of those games too. So I think luck's a part of it, but we try to do what we can to prepare for those moments and be at our best when our best is needed.
Well, as always, Coach, you're very humble. I've always admired that about you, and it's always about the team. also in 2009 was the first year that you won a state championship. You went 32-1. Now, you're only in your 5th year as a head coach at the high school level. And you beat Cherryville in the Western Regionals 72-71, I believe. Mm-hmm. And they were very impressive that year, and they were highly ranked in the state rankings. Talk about that win.
Cherryville was a heck of a team. I remember in that game, that's the only game I've ever had in my almost 20-year career that my heart was beating so fast. I had to sit down. I remember telling my assistant, I got to sit down. But that, like you said, that team was great. They had Terry Wisnett, who ended up going to Florida State. They had Thomas Best, who went to UNC Asheville, and Darius Howell, who was a lightning quick point guard. It escapes me where he went to college right now. But we had a pretty tough team too then, led by Aaron Toomey, who was a junior. He went on to have a great career. But that game was back and forth. And, again, we got lucky at the end of that game. Toomey got fouled late in the game. He was a 92% career free throw shooter, and he only made 1 of 2 to put us up by 1. And Terry Wisnett had a shot to win at the end of the game, but luckily the horn went off before he let the ball go. And, again, goes back to being a little bit fortunate at the end of that game, because if you give a guy like him a look at the end of a game like that, normally those guys step up and make those plays.
Now, Coach, outside of winning the state championship in 2009, 2019, give me some other magical moments you've had as a high school coach.
There's been a lot that I think back to, but I think probably a couple of the highlights would be being able to coach Spencer Wilson and the shot that he hit at our dedication game that ended up garnering national attention. We got on ESPN and the CBS Evening News, and just to be a small part of Spencer's journey has been very special for me. And another thing I would say would be the relationships that we've made through this with other coaches. Go back to Cherryville, Coach Harrell at Cherryville. We've had some knockdown, drag-out games, but he and I have become friends over the years. And those relationships with coaches and players and our former players. And one thing we always tell our guys is we want to be invited to your wedding, because if we're invited to your wedding, then that means we've made an impact in your life in a positive way. And I think that's one of the big things that goes back to me that's been special, is just those relationships.
Well, you and I both share memorable moments with Spencer Wilson, and we were both able to watch him get married this past year. Coach, I've watched you a number of times, especially at the travel ball level, and you've always been someone that's been very professional, high character, a man of integrity, and also a man of faith. What does it mean to you to set the proper example?
Well, going back, I would say that I think that goes back to believing that coaching is a ministry, that's a ministry for me, and maybe I'll share Christ and my faith with others. And I think that being a good example is being a good steward of the gifts that you've been given. And I feel like that coaching is a gift that I've been given, and it's just of the utmost importance. I take it really seriously to try to be a good example and somebody that our guys could emulate if they'd like. We let people down every day, but we try our best, and we take our opportunity really seriously.
Now, Coach, you founded the NC Spartans travel ball organization. And the one thing I've noticed since you've been coaching the NC Spartans in your program, for you, it's never been about wins and losses. What's been the mission statement for your program?
We're founded on 3 principles. And although we do want to win, our first principle that we want to do is to establish a solid foundation for our players, mainly in the game. I want to establish a foundation based on the fundamentals of the game. And number 2, which is why we come to the Phenom Hoop events, is to play against the best. We want to play against the best competition and get exposure for our guys, because with our travel teams, that is the main focus, is exposure. With our younger teams, it's building the fundamentals of the game and becoming a better player. And number 3, going to win and lose, and learning to win and lose with class, because in your life, you're going to win some, or you're going to probably lose. So probably more than you win. And I think that's a life lesson and a principle that we try to teach our players, that can lose a game, but not be a loser. Just because somebody scored more points on the scoreboard than you, that doesn't mean you lost. That means they outscored you that game. But we try to teach life lessons through wins and losses on the court.
Coach, who's made the biggest impact on you in your coaching career?
I'd have to say there's 3 or 4. Number one, it would be my wife Marcia, because without her, and you'll know what I mean when I say this. If without her support, there is no coaching career. We've got 2 young kids now, and when we had kids, that changes things, as you know. So having her support was big. And obviously my high school coach is Coach Page, and a guy Mike Talbot. I don't know if you know, but he was an assistant coach on that high school team that I was on. So he had a big impact because he had his scouting service, and I got into that. So that was a big impact on me. And going back, my youth pastors, they had a big impact on me when I was in high school, and that kind of led me into coaching also, to try to have an impact on people. And more specifically, basketball coaches, I'd say Brian Robinson, the girls coach at Bishop McGuinness. I mean, he's won 9 state championships. So what better guy to watch? I have so much respect for him and what he does. And the coaches, even though I don't know them, I would say John Wooden, with his books that I've read. Coach K, I'm a big Duke fan, so I've read all his books and try to emulate some of his leadership principles. And Tony Bennett, the UVA coach, I really have a lot of admiration for him, and pay attention a lot to what he does and kind of the philosophy of their program.
Well, Coach, you've often stated that God has allowed you to use your passion, basketball, and faith to make an impact on young players. You've done exactly that.
Thank you. It's amazing that God has opened that door, and I'll never forget the night in college where I read that book, and I felt like They Call Me Coach by John Wood, and I read the line that a football coach said, "I made the young men of America my ministry, and I've tried to bring out the best in the boys that I've coached, and hoping to make them better people and better Christians on and off the field through what we do." And that made a huge impact on me. I've never forgot it, and I never will. And Tony Bennett's father, Dick Bennett, who was also a coach, he said something a couple years ago in the tournament that's really stuck with me also. And it's so true. And he said that because I understand what truly matters, it allows me to enjoy the things that seem to matter, such as basketball, championships, and winning. So that those kind of quotes just really stick with me.
Well, Coach, one thing I've always admired about you is you don't only just talk the talk, you walk the walk. And I've sat from aside and from far and watched you. And you've always maintained a very humble, professional, you're a high character. I know you're a man of faith, but it's really enjoyable to watch someone like yourself be such an impact on so many young players in the game today. And we want to say thank you for coming on today on Coach's Corner. Hope the listeners get a better understanding of what you are as a person and as a coach. And just want to say thank you so much, Coach.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Rick. I'm humbled that you would say that, and that anybody would care to listen to what I had to say. So I appreciate you having me on, and we're always appreciative of what you do for us and for our players through the Phenom Hoops platform.
Thank you.